First of all, I want to say uh, welcome to everybody who's joined us, and for those who will be watching us in the future. This is the American Mead Makers Association Home Governing Committee, Mead Matters, episode number 19, and that is a mouthful for sure.
Yes.
Uh, this is the webcast of our little group. But the gist is that this team of dedicated volunteers would like to bring fresh content to the public on a regular basis. We are enthusiasts. We want to share new opportunities, learnings, and perspectives with people interested in learning more about mead. So my guests today are Billy and his partner, Susanna Beltz, are founders of Lost Cause Meadery in San Diego, California. The meadery was opened in 2017. Billy was a frequent winner at mead competitions in the USA and internationally. He's been published in Zymergy magazine and the American Mead Maker magazine for his work on mead technique. Lost Cause is well known for their enthusiasm and drive for unique and avant-garde ingredient and flavor combinations. Most people would be content to have a successful meadery business, but ambition runs deep here. They now have a second fermentation business, Oddish Wines. Worth a look for anyone who is interested. And you can visit them at their website at www.lostcausemead.com. And their mead is available through Vino Shipper to be shipped across the entire United States, where purchases of that nature are permitted. John Talkington is the founder of Brimming Meadery in Milton, Delaware, along with his business partner, Robert J. Walker. And they have a second location in Seaford, Delaware. John has extensive commercial fermentation experience, including a span of time spent at a famous brewery you might know called Dogfish Head. Brimming opened in July of 2017. His meads embrace his interest in history and typically feature inspiration and acknowledgement of Nordic peoples and their myths. His meadery regularly includes live music and always makes room to share and socialize with this drink we all love. If that isn't enough, he just opened a brewery. Much like our other panelist, John has won numerous medals at competitions far and wide. His use of highly unusual ingredients and mastery of spices makes him a perfect choice for this webcast. You can visit his website at www.brimminghornmeadery.com. Again, his meads are available to be shipped anywhere it's permitted within the United States. So, welcome aboard, guys. Really glad to have you here. I'm looking forward to this. I've been planning this for a while. I'm very excited to have you participate in this particular topic, but we're not going to just stick to spices. It's wide open to anything. So maybe before I jump into the questions, and I solicited questions from lots of people I know, so I'm up in the 50 plus range. We're not going to get through them all today. But it gives me a good kind of grouping to work with. Is there anything that you might want to start with? John, maybe we'll open with you.
Oh, I'm open to talk about anything.
Okay. Billy, anything you'd like to start with?
No, let's answer any questions and then maybe go from there. I have some questions for John later on, but
Oh, good.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, love it. All right, so Billy, one of the things that I recall when you were up here just a couple of months ago is an absinthe-inspired mead. Now, this particular mead has 12 ingredients in it. One of my questions to you is how close to an actual absinthe would you say it is? I personally have never had absinthe, so I'm curious because that was one that we tried during a bottle share.
Yeah, I think pretty close. The comments that we've received from people that really like absinthe, or everyone seems pretty impressed. The mead was meant to uh, come across as like an absinthe drip, which is where you're pouring it over the sugar cube and it's adding the sweetness to make it kind of palatable. So it's a it's a sweet mead that has a nice bitter finish from the wormwood. Uh, and then in the nose is where you get a lot of the absinthe, right? The botanicals. Um, we wanted to dial back, kind of up the citrus and dial back um, the star anise component just as personal preference and kind of make it maybe a SoCal take on absinthe. But I think we did pretty good. I sent mine up to um, the guys up at Hierophant Meadery up in Washington, and because they're, like besides John, they're the other mead spice experts in the country, and
I absolutely agree.
at the same
Yeah.
time they were making an absinthe mead, and they sent theirs down, and theirs is just delicious. It's a totally different take. So rather than kind of like the really sweet and bitter, they kept it drier, carbonated. It's more like absinthe-esque, but if it was like a sparkling off dry mead. Yeah, so it's kind of fun. I think absinthe allows you to really, it's kind of like making a gin mead or something. There's room to lean in to whatever you want to lean into. But for us, it was important to use the wormwood, which if any commercial mead makers ever want to use wormwood and you're having pushback, DM me. I can kind of tell you how we approached it with the TTB.
So one of the ingredients that you listed in there was green anise, something I'm not actually familiar with. I'm just familiar with star anise. How is that different?
It's just what a lot of absinthe producers use traditionally. Um, we it wasn't too different. Was maybe not as pungent, but I don't remember it. Actually, you know what? I'll just say when we were doing all those trials, uh, that was kind of a blur, and I would have to revisit that one before I say for sure. I don't remember it being too distinctly different, but I don't want to say the wrong thing because I mean, we had 12 ingredients in the final thing. We trialed like 30 different spices, and so just not sure I recall exactly.
Okay.
But the reason we use it is because we found it in a lot of traditional absinthe recipes. And I will say, what really made that mead, what brought it all together is the honey. So we used ulmo blossom honey from
Oh,
Chile.
that's a great honey.
It is. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
it's a really interesting honey, and it already had a lot of kind of botanical,
Very floral.
almost incense-like notes. So it was a good backbone to everything else, I thought.
For anybody who's listening in and who's interested in finding out more about that honey, World Honey Exchange is one of the places where you can get that. It is a very good honey. I've used it myself. They have a lot of really interesting varietal honeys that are well worth exploring. Um, so let's see here. One of the other things on that mead. Oh, I wanted to ask you. So you said you did trials with like 30 different spice ingredients. Maybe explain a little bit about your trial process and how that works for you when you're doing this kind of exploration to come up with your final end product and the balance that you want to achieve.
Yeah, I think everyone does it different. I know, so, like talking to Steve Fletty about spices recently, and he does a lot of like tinctures and he nails it. And so
Boy, does he
and
ever.
we do like direct maceration. So I think there's a lot of approaches that work. But we basically we just try and mimic the way we're going to do it with the mead. So we'll just take the spice in a little 8-ounce jar of mead. Not worry about dialing in the exact amount. We just want to see what it does, and let it macerate for 4 or 5 days. Then do a trial with everything, and then when you can kind of start to dial in. Okay, we like this. It was way too, pungent in this little bench trial. So then you blend in some of the control, you blend in more of the control, and you start to get an idea of like ratios. Like, okay, cardamom is this much, but the green anise is like super pungent, and we use like an eighth to a full part of cardamom. And we've done enough spice meads where uh, we have a good grasp for some of the main spices, how much we want to use. And so then we kind of use the ratios I was talking about to figure out the new spices, if it's more or less pungent. And we try and just err on the side of less, because you can always add more,
Yep.
Okay. So when you're making these 8-ounce samples of a infusion or maceration, you've measured the amount of mead that you put in there and the amount of spice by, grams to liters kind of a deal, right?
No. What
No?
I'm saying is we don't even worry about it at that point. We just like throw it in and then just see what it does. And then what we'll do is say we put in green anise and it's like, okay, we like this. But to see how it would really be in the mead, it's way too strong. We'll mix it with some control mead and then just kind of get an idea of how much are we going to use. And then some spices will be like, okay, this amount was perfect, so we're going to need to use a lot of it. Then, so we don't try and dial it in on the first bench trial. Then we'll go back and we'll look at we used to dial it in on the bench trial if we had nothing to work from, but we've done it for long enough. I'm sure John probably doesn't even need to look at his notes. He just remembers, but that's where I'm going for, to get there someday.
Yeah.
But we know, like, okay, a lot of these, let's look back at what we've done that was successful in previous meads. And so we can figure that out. And then the new stuff will just start lighter, and then kind of scale or go add a little more, add a little more. We're not in a hurry. We're not putting these out to distro. So if it takes 6 weeks to get all the spices in and dialed in, like, that's fine.
Okay. John, thoughts on that?
I actually do a very similar method to what Billy was talking about. So we add the spice up front and I kind of taste it throughout. Usually we'll do like a 5-gallon test batch or something like that. And then I'll kind of scale up from there. But that's usually how it works for me anyway. I just add the spice, taste it. If I need to adjust, I'll add more later.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that's great information. I think people will find that very very interesting. John, one of the meads you've made a while back is one with black walnut leaves,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
I find that very interesting. I've got a whole bunch frozen right now, waiting for the opportunity to use them. Uh, what about other leaves used as spices? And what I'm thinking of here is, for instance, raspberry leaves are often used in herbal tea.
Yeah.
Have you used them, and with what results? Do you find, for instance, that the leaf itself provides almost as much flavor or less flavor, more flavor than the fruit would in most occasions?
They're a very subtle flavor, the leaves, the raspberry leaf. So I have added them into a raspberry mead before, but it was more to add, like, I use the leaves for like a tannin addition,
Ah,
but the leaves are very subtle. So I mean, you would taste them more in a tea. You'd probably need quite a bit of them to get the flavor to come through in a mead.
so would these be dried or fresh in this?
I use dried.
Right, okay. Billy, gentian root? and I don't even know if I'm saying that right.
Gentian.
Gentian root.
Gentian.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I noticed in a few of your meads, it looked like you have a sort of a base mead that you've added a few variations to, but many of the ingredients are the same. Is that Gentian was one of those that I noticed. What does that look like? What does it taste like?
That's a bittering botanical that we use. Like we've used it for under the Oddish brand, almost all of our vermouths and amaros, and we've made an amaro mead that we use gentian for. We just made a tiki cocktail mead that uh, that had in the actual cocktail uses Campari, and Campari uses gentian for the bitterness. So we just added straight gentian and orange to kind of mimic the Campari thing. So yeah, Tim said used in bitters formulas a lot. It's kind of like there's a whole family of botanicals that can add bitterness, and I think a lot of them fall under the Artemisia, and so that's like mugwort and wormwood and all those gentian, not in that family, but also used for bittering, like gentian, rhubarb root. We've used a lot. These are just things you'll find when you start looking at like amaro recipes, which depend on, they need a lot of bitterness because you have kind of that sweet bitter component. So like it, we found gentian is the easiest to use and the most recognizable. Like if you add gentian, you're going to get bitterness and you're going to get that it's a woody herbal aroma that people often associate with like cocktails, like with amaros and vermouths. So it's an easy way if you want to make something that has some bitterness and kind of is cocktaily, amaro-ish, that kind of thing. Gentian's really easy to use. Some of the other ones are they're not as direct bittering, like rhubarb root or mugwort. You have to use more, or there's just we've gotten different results from them, but
You ever
yeah,
used angelica root?
angelica root, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, gentian is kind of like the punch you in the face
Yeah.
one. Although some people, it is pretty woody and earthy. You should, if you're going to make anything with gentian, let it sit for a few months and kind of play nice with everything else and before you package it, or at least before you start serving it or drinking it.
You mentioned something I've never heard of anyone doing before, which is rhubarb root as opposed to the stalk. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, you can get it on. I mean, we're not like getting rhubarb, like we're just getting dried rhubarb root you can get from Amazon, any of the spice stores,
Huh.
and it is it's a bittering botanical, but it adds more like smoky, earthy flavor. So if you ever had like black cardamom, rhubarb root kind of is I get a lot of those notes like tobacco, smoke. It's a really cool, like we used it for a tart cherry vermouth that was perfect because if you're going for like chocolate, tobacco, earth, cinnamon, vanilla, like rhubarb root can play nicely. But if you're going for something lighter, rhubarb root can really throw it off. Whereas gentian is more, I think, it's just gentian. It can be used in anything really. I don't know. Have you used rhubarb root, John?
I have not.
I think you'd like it.
That.
It's a cool, yeah.
Yeah, I've used gentian. I've used angelica root. There's one other bittering herb. They use it in gin a lot. It's a root. I can't think of the name right now though.
Yeah, our favorite bittering herb is actually mugwort because it grows here wild, and so we can forage for it.
Yeah,
Which
we
is
have a lot of wild mugwort here too.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it grows all around the woods by my meadery.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Sagewort, just stuff. That's the best way to add bitterness is go find something in that Artemisia family that grows wild near you and use that.
We have used roasted dandelion root a few times too. So it's kind
Yeah.
of bitter, but it has like a coffee note
Mhm.
to it when you roast it.
Okay. And it does add bitterness?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. There's if anyone is a how do you say it? Chinar, the artichoke amaro. So you can
Oh
use
yeah, yeah.
artichoke.
It's Italian.
Yeah.
They add it to yeah.
Yeah, so you can use artichoke stalk, which is really bitter when you bite into it. We tried it and couldn't get it to taste very well, but I know that a lot of bartenders like that. So
There's actually a soda in New England called Moxie that they flavor with gentian root.
oh really?
So it's like a root beer, but it's bitter.
Huh.
Yeah, it's one of those things that people either love it or hate it.
Yeah, I it's we it's funny. We can sell bitter amaros and vermouths under the our Oddish wine label.
Mhm.
But every time we've made a bitter mead, it is a tough sell for people. It's like
Yeah, yeah. I think it would be for me too.
yeah.
Metheglins on a whole are sometimes a hard sell.
Well, that's a shame because I know I've had metheglins that both of you have made, and they are just exceptionally well balanced, which makes me want to come back for more. But of course, I'm also a meat enthusiast, so maybe the audience is a little different, and the public in general just doesn't know quite what to make of all those different flavor and aroma combinations. So I am curious. I've used green cardamom a lot. How does that differ from black cardamom? What would you describe that characteristic as?
The black is obviously it has a darker husk on it, and it's more smoky. So with the green cardamom, you get that fresh, almost like menthol
Hmm.
smell from it. The black is very earthy and smoky.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to combine that one with like darker fruits
Mm.
because that like smoke and earthiness like pairs really well with like dark berries like black raspberries or blackberry or black currants, things like that.
Awesome. So you made a mead, John, with black currant and aronia berries, both of which are very tannic, very earthy. How do you achieve fine balance with that to make that enjoyable?
Uh, what's the aronia berries?
Yeah, black currant and aronia.
Well, I mean, you can pretty balance it pretty easy with those two fruits, berries, because you get the nice tartness from the black currants, but then you get the earthy tannic notes from the uh, aronia berries. But like fret, it depends on where the aronia berries are grown too. So if the soil's good, you'll get a less tannic aronia berry from at least from what I've bought. So we have a guy that grows them locally. So it seems like the more he watered them, the sweeter the berries is. And like the years that were dry here, the berries were more earthy and woody and tannic. So it just depends on the crop year. Um, but with aronias, I usually try to blend them with another berry because they are so tannic and earthy. Um, I usually do like blackberries, black currants. We do have an aronia berry mead that we do on its own, but I use juice to do that one. It seems to give a little cleaner flavor and it's less earthy.
Okay. Are you mostly working with whole fruits when you're making fruited meats?
We We do a little bit of both, so it just depends on the mead. Sometimes we'll get whole fruit, sometimes we'll get juice. Um, I don't like using puree because the loss. Um,
Yeah.
but sometimes we'll use concentrated fruit juice, but we sometimes we'll use a blend of both. That way you get a little bit of the fresh fruit, and then you can kind of give it a little more character with some concentrate or some fruit juice.
Okay. Great. Uh, Billy, one of the meads that you made, I think you called it Missionary's Downfall, and it had mint in it. And I'm interested to hear how you handle the mint.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a mint expert. Um, we've used it twice, and I think it came out well in this one. We just again got local mint and did a direct maceration. You like soaked it in the mead, right? Not for very long. Tried to bruise it a little, and then put it in for maybe 48 hours, and then pull it. And, mint's one of those things, uh, like we've seen this with coffee beans and certain things that are really intense aromatically. You kind of overshoot it a little because if this is going to be bottled and you want it to, people might be drinking this in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years. You want to, it's going to, after like a few months, start to recede a little. So with the mint, we overshoot it a little so that when it is released, there's still some nice mint character. Um, yeah, that's our approach.
Okay. Arthur mentioned in the chat that he's drinking John's Royal Metheglin at the moment,
Oh, nice.
and it's got savory herbs. And could you describe your typical process approaches when working with fresh herbs and other foliar ingredients? And I think that applies to both of you, but maybe John, if you would start.
With fresh herbs.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was home brewing and using fresh herbs, I would make a tea basically, and I would use that tea for my base water to make the mead. One of the meads I did that with was basilisk. We do that one commercially now, but it was sweet basil, and lime, and then orange blossom honey. But I would basically make a tea um, with the fresh herbs. I wouldn't bring the herbs to a boil or anything, so I'd bring the water up to about 185 and then steep the herbs in the water and then pull them out after about 15 to 20 minutes and then allow that to cool. And then I would add my honey and the limes and lime zest to it for that particular mead. Since I've went commercial, that's a little harder to do. So we usually just make a base mead and then I'll add the herbs to secondary. And that way I have a little more control over the flavor that way. Um, we usually just bag them up, put them in there, and then like Billy does, you kind of taste after 24 hours, 48 hours. And then once I get the flavor where I want, then I pull the bag of herbs out.
Okay. How about you, Billy? What do you do when you're working with fresh herbs and savory?
Same thing. Same thing. We, we'll do throw it right in, check often. The we've kind of learned which herbs or spices need to be checked often because especially if you are macerating it in like a 12, 14, 15% ABV mead, there's certain things we found that just if you've been there too long, you're going to get character that you don't want, right? It might be fresh. What you're extracting is really fresh and aromatic, and then you leave it in for a week, you start really getting like the earthy,
Vegetal notes. Yeah.
yeah. So that's just through practice and just, checking every day. Some things you got, peppers, coffee, you got to be checking multiple times a day,
Oh yeah.
depending on how you do it. But yeah, that's just kind of trial and error.
So if you were to offer a rule of thumb for a new mead maker, what would you say about spice additions then?
Like any spice?
Yeah, really. I mean, yeah, just rule of thumb.
Yeah, I would say shoot low and kind of do it in steps and to get it to where you want to. As long as you have a you're sure that the meat is stable and you're able to keep it from oxidation. A lot of home mead makers um, will maybe take the right approach to spices, but they're not protecting the mead from oxidation. So they've been messing with it for 2 weeks, and suddenly the mead is way more oxidized than it should be. And then you've kind of, one step forward, two steps back. So as long as you have that ability, then yeah, go slow and err on the side of less, because you can always add more.
But you
if
can't take it out.
you can't take it out. Yeah. Yeah.
You can blend it down into something else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So one of the other things that I got from a couple of folks was that they see people say, oh, you should toast those spices, cinnamon, cardamom, cocoa nibs, etc. So the question is toasting really the bee's knees, or are people overdoing it? Is it necessary at all?
I would say from our experience, there's certain stuff that we toast every time, but it really comes down to bench trials,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Even things like cacao nibs, which everyone says, oh, you have to toast it. Well, a lot of cacao nibs that people get are already toasted.
Yeah.
And so you just have to know your source, and then you need to do bench trials and see what you're looking for. Like coconut is, it's like two different spices if you toast it. And sometimes toasted coconut can be exactly what you're looking for. Sometimes actually fresh coconut fits with the meat better. So I would say bench trials. What we have found, though, as a rule of thumb for cinnamon, hey, buddy.
That spider made no friend to give me.
Oh, no. Okay, I'll be right out.
That's awesome.
But like for cinnamon, we actually boil it and add the boiled water with the cinnamon every time now, because what we found is when we do that, it adds a cinnamon flavor that stays around longer than just really powerful cinnamon aroma.
Yeah.
Same reason for coffee. We don't always do this, but in the past we've had success adding beans, but then also adding some cold brew, because sometimes you'll get something and it's all in the nose, but that will dissipate, and then you don't have it as much integrated into the flavor. So cinnamon, we've just found through trial and error, we boil every time, and we need to use a little more cinnamon that way, but it actually makes it so you get more cinnamon in the flavor rather than just like a cinnamon punch to your nose.
Mhm.
So
Awesome. Oh, that's great information. Same for
Yeah,
you, John?
I kind of do the same with cinnamon. I don't boil it, but we steep it in hot water like a tea, and then we just add all that into there, and I think you get a better cinnamon flavor and aroma as well doing it that way. Kind of releases the oils a little better.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the questions that just came up in the chat was how long do you let cocoa nibs sit in the mead, and how much per gallon do you use? Now, That's always a tough question for guys that have gone commercial because you don't really think in gallons anymore. You think in barrels. So if you can translate that for us, that would be awesome.
Oh, geez.
I
Yeah. Well, you can do it in barrels too, if that's easier for you. We can all figure out the math.
I mean, I think when I was homebrewing, I used to do about like four ounces per gallon probably of cocoa nibs, and I would toast them.
And then you'd let them sit for
It
a
would
couple
really
days, a
depend on
week.
it would really depend on the mead.
Oh,
I mean, weeks, months, you know.
okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've never really had them get like overly bitter in my experience.
okay. And does the sweetness or ABV of the mead have an impact on how long you want to let those things sit in solution to macerate?
Oh, most definitely.
So can you quantify that for us?
I mean, a sweeter mead, you're gonna have to leave them sit on the nibs a little longer just to extract the flavors. Where something dry, I mean, you don't have much body to a dry mead, so it's gonna extract pretty quick.
Okay. Looks like Billy's nodding his head, so I think we're in agreement there. Uh, One of the other questions that I got was to contrast alcohol versus water extraction. And then the corollary to that is cold water versus hot water extraction. Billy?
well, it's the I think that I'm a big bench trial guy with spices, even if even buy the source, right? If it's the same spice, but you're getting it from a new source, you should bench trial it.
Yeah.
It's just that's how spices work. But I think the general rule is like the higher ABV or the warmer the medium, the more extraction you'll get, right? So if you want to have a more gentle extraction, a lower ABV, or ambient or cold temps will do that. So um, there's like tea, we've been using pu'er tea. Like in our newest Wolf, we use pu'er tea and Lapsang Souchong tea, and we purposefully didn't make an actual tea. We did a like ambient temp extraction because I wanted the tannins, but I didn't want like real, like I didn't want to overshoot the bitterness.
Yeah.
Um, so when you make tea and you do like a cold brew tea versus hot water, it's going to change what you extract. And so, yeah, I think as a general rule, we try and go by that. Yeah.
And in most cases for your bench trials, I think you mentioned before, you're using a quantity of the mead with the spices macerated in the mead, correct?
Mhm.
Generally? Okay. Same, is that the same thing you're doing, John? Or are you
Uh,
using waters
ve
and teas?
very similar.
Okay.
Sometimes I will make some just honey water and add the spices into it. And especially if it's a new spice or an herb I'm working with, that'll kind of give me an idea what to look for in the mead that I'm making.
So when you say honey water, it's like a
Just must.
1 to 4 dilution kind of thing
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
something
exactly.
similar?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly.
All right. What do you think the most common mistake is that people make when they're adding spice to mead?
Probably adding too much all at once or trying to put everything in primary.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the two. Those are the two big ones. And then I think for me, after that, I try and um, convince people that most spices are just like honey. Honey is where, as meat makers, we know an orange blossom honey is way different than a buckwheat honey. Uh, but the general public doesn't always know that.
Hmm.
Same is true for a lot of spices, so like vanilla, cacao nibs, coffee, right? These all have, depending on the source, the region where they're from, you can have like completely different spices. So the thing that I see a lot is people will just do a recipe and it'll just say, oh, I want to add cinnamon and vanilla. It's like, okay, well, you actually have a lot of different ways you could go with that. Are you using Ceylon or cassia cinnamon? Are you boiling it or to make it softer and extract more oils or not? With the vanilla, you can go more traditional vanilla. But depending on the source, you can get vanilla that is woody and smoky or like, floral with notes of strawberry. And so that to me is where you can kind of take it to the next level. Just realize every spice or almost every spice has, a rabbit hole you should probably go down if you really want to make something excellent.
So that actually brings up another question. Cinnamon was one of the examples offered and vanilla as well. So for cinnamon, there's 3 major types of cinnamon. I'm sure there are some minor variations on that theme. And then the same thing is actually kind of true of vanilla as well. So where those are sourced and the type of vanilla, maybe give us a quick rundown of John, maybe vanilla for you and cinnamon for Billy. Run down like some of the sources that you found and how you might describe those and what they might apply as in a mead, if you would. Sorry, I'm not trying to stump you.
Oh, I don't use a lot of vanilla. When I do, it's usually Madagascar and Mexican vanilla that I've sourced.
Okay.
But I'm not a vanilla expert.
Right.
I mean, during the when the vanilla beans were like $400 a pound, we were just using like a really good grade vanilla extract, which is about $300 a gallon.
Wow.
Because
how far does that go?
Yeah, it goes a good way. But everybody was paying like $400 or $500 a pound for vanilla at the time, and I was just like, I couldn't justify that, so we sourced some really good vanilla extract. But as far as like vanilla beans, I usually split them and scrape them, and the 2 that I used the most were Madagascar vanilla and Mexican vanilla.
Okay, Billy?
We've gotten pretty into vanilla because we just ended up making a lot of meads with vanilla. We've gotten away from it a little bit, but at one point we were doing a lot, and because the price was so high, you really had to make sure, right, you were getting the stuff that had the most bang for your buck. So I don't know if you guys can. That's not going to show up. Anyways, there's a vanilla broker called Ted Jones, and you go on there, and he's who we use. He's got vanillas from all over the world, and you're looking at like 60 different types that you can choose from, and prices have now come way down, which is great.
Yeah,
but we'll get trials from him, and it's just really interesting how different they are. And we use it the same way that John does when we add it. Yeah, Ted Jones, yeah. And then for cinnamon, yeah, Tim asked, do we blend different types? We do. We usually do like a 2/3 Ceylon, 1/3 Vietnamese cinnamon, Vietnamese cassia.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Vietnamese cinnamon. It actually has a sweet taste to it.
That's like the royal cinnamon, right?
Yeah.
Or royal Saigon. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kind of hot and sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Versus the softer, like the Ceylon is softer, more woody, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing like a Mexican chocolate, anything Mexican cuisine, you almost want to use just all Ceylon because that's what they use, and it's perfect for it.
Yeah. You both mentioned locally sourcing herbs and spices. What are some other examples of ingredients that you think folks could or should forage, and particularly anything that is regionally special, if you know what that might be.
Uh, I forage sumac berries behind the meadery. We've made a really nice session mead with those. I just pick the berries and I usually steep them in water overnight, and then I'll make the mead from that. You just kind of crush them. They have like a really nice lemony flavor to them. I don't know if you ever worked with sumac berries, Billy.
I have, and I
Yeah.
find same descriptors, right? Kind of lemony,
Yeah.
tart. They add a like nice little bit of color, and if you pick them when they're full on berries, you get some tannin as well.
hmm
Yeah. You can also
Yeah.
pick them when they're just blossoms.
Yeah. I've never did anything with the blossoms.
Okay. And that actually was another question that one of the guys asked. So we're gonna pass on that one. Here's kind of a fun one. And this relates to vanilla, as it turns out. Is beaver castoreum a spice?
I I wouldn't believe so. That's what they used to make vanilla extract with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, then the corollary to that is who originally thought that was a good idea? Uh, some of the things that we find in the food world, you really have to wonder. So for each of you, and maybe start with Billy, what's the spice mead that you're most proud of and why?
Hey, buddy.
Bring him in, bring him in.
You want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Wolf.
This is a camera.
It is a
Yeah.
kid.
Yes.
That's John.
Hey, John, guess what?
What?
Second bag.
All right, you got him.
Awesome.
Spice mead I'm most proud of. I would say either Wolf with kind of getting the smoke and tannic elements paired with barrel-aged mellow it's just a really fun exercise every year. And I think we've made some cool stuff with the Wolf series. And then our very first Amaro-inspired mead, it was kind of like a sweet vermouth and Amaro-inspired mead called Il Sanghe. That was really cool. That's what sent me down the rabbit hole of like bitterness, which I don't come from a cocktail world. And so like, Amaros, Italian bitter liqueurs, all that was new to me. We kind of did it on a whim, and it came out really cool. And then I think the one we years ago became kind of known for was the Chasing Alice mead with the candy cap mushrooms.
Oh, that was really good.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, that's one of those spices where it really depends on the source, and we just have not been able to replicate the maple intensity we got in that first year of candy caps. We've used them since, and I don't know, and they've been great, but for whatever reason, that first year must have been like 2019 when we got them. It was just pure maple goodness. So that was really cool.
How about you, John?
Probably our Royal Metheglin. I think it's a very like classic example of what somebody would think a metheglin would taste like. It's a typical like medieval up through the 1700s kind of recipe. I mean, it's wildflower honey and it has like hyssop, and there's some cloves and ginger and thyme and sage and rosemary. So it's got a little bit of everything. Nothing really comes through, as the main spice, but you get a little hint of everything. And then the other one would be a Force of Time. So that one is also wildflower honey base, and then we add hibiscus flowers, saffron, cinnamon, long pepper, and ginger to it. So it's a very like bright red mead, but it has like some like Middle Eastern flavors going on, and it seems to be a favorite of our customers, and it's definitely one of mine.
What is a long pepper?
Um, so it's just it's a type of peppercorn. They grow them in like Southeast Asia and India. So they kind of look like a little long pine cone. And during medieval times, one of the kings actually preferred long pepper over regular peppercorns, but um, he was not able to get them into Europe as much as he wanted to. So that's why we use black pepper the way we do now, because it was too hard to get. But now it's pretty easy to get. But it's just, if you look it up on the internet, just type in long pepper, it'll come up. It's actually a little hotter than regular black pepper, and it's a little more earthy and has some like smoky, woody notes to it as well.
Huh. Very
But I
interesting.
really enjoy the flavor of it. When I was brewing at Dogfish Head, that's when I first discovered it. We used to use it in our Namaste beer. It's a Belgian wit style beer, and it had the long pepper in it.
Awesome.
Hey, John, have you ever used Sancho pepper?
I'm not familiar with that one.
I wasn't either. A guy at a local brewer recommended it when doing trials with like black or white or pink pepper. He said Sancho is this really cool pepper that's like in that area, but really complex. Okay, I don't know if anyone else has heard of
Yeah, so
SAN.
Josh Holbrook has used that
Oh,
a
Okay.
number of times. I've used it myself. It is an interesting pepper. It's got some of that same black pepper character to it, but it also has a numbing effect on the tongue,
Oh, okay. So
which is rather noticeable.
almost like kuba berries.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, fun thing to play with.
Yeah.
Let's see. Question for John on John's spiced orange and raisin mead as a modern take on
Joe's Ancient
Joe's
Orange.
Ancient Orange Mead,
Mhm.
which became your Ancient Orange Mead commercially. What
Yeah.
spice levels have you changed up or process techniques in adding it to the unique complexity in the recipe?
I pretty much went by the recipe when I made that mead. We just doubled everything. So it was 100-gallon batch and we doubled it by 100.
Okay. All right. Uh, Billy, what's the most unusual spice that you think you've used?
unusual. Let's see. I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. Would have been mushrooms at one point because when we threw those in, wasn't many people doing that
Hmm.
yet. Um, we've we've used some weird stuff though, so I'll have to think about that one.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a minute. How about you, John?
Oh, geez. Pr Probably just some different spices and herbs I've used from Asia and Africa. Like I can't think of the names of them. Um, Bob Slansey took me to an urban spice store in New York City. I think it's called Kalustians or something like that. There were so many things to try in there. There were spices and herbs that I had never heard of. So I bought a bunch of little like 1 ounce and 2 ounce packages of stuff and then took it back to the meadery and we did a little bunch of little like 1 gallon test batch with different things. Some were very good, some weren't so good. So
One that I haven't seen anyone use that I loved when we used. It was kind of weird. Was pinyon pine,
okay.
and it just had this lovely like soft pine flavor with like notes of there's like a woodiness, but like a almost like a coconutty, almondy, nutty woodiness. It was really cool. Maybe that would be a weird one.
So what part did you use? Like the
We we were we were kind of just using the pine needles at first,
okay.
and then we were like, screw this, let's try it with a branch. And it actually the whole thing
Yeah.
was the best version. So we just took some pinyon pine branches and threw them in, and that's when we got like the really cool notes from it.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a type of pine tree that grows here locally. It's called a loblolly. We kind of did that with a test batch. We just took like 15 gallons of mead and then cut a branch and then racked it
Yeah,
on top of the branch and let it sit.
that's awesome. Did it
Yeah.
come out good?
Yeah, yeah, it was nice and piney and citrusy. It was nice. We've harvested some like local juniper berries and stuff like that and added them to mead.
So actually, that timing is perfect.
Oh
Tim
yeah.
Weaver was asking, what about an infusion of juniper? So maybe talk about that.
I've done that more for beer than I have mead. I tend to use juniper berries in mead just because they're um, more citrusy and piney notes to them. I think that carrot, it blends well with honey. Now juniper infusions, I've made sati and a couple Norwegian farmhouse beers, and you basically take the juniper branches and you add that to your brewing water, and you heat it up and let that steep in there, and then that's what you mash in with.
Right. Yes.
Yep.
Well, we're getting some pretty complimentary comments in the group chat for you guys. You're doing a great job. Really appreciate all the answers and the thoughts. One of the topics that came up a couple times in questions that were submitted was, what is the source of your inspiration? Billy, maybe you can start.
Mine is John.
Oh, we're gonna go that way. Okay.
Well, I think John inspired me to look at meads like you know, I don't know. For a while when I was starting out, it seemed like if you were gonna make a metheglin, it was like a metheglin. It was just a spiced mead. And or you were making a melomel, and or like the classic, like, oh, it's a mango habanero or something. But then seeing John's meads, where you're seeing pairings you would never see in almost every mead, whether it has a bunch of different fruit or not, had like a spice component. And it was more like it doesn't matter if it's a spice or fruit. It's just like, let's whatever goes in to make the most interesting complex mead. So I kind of took that and I've used it to inspire our meads. When we rarely, unless we're really intentionally doing just a mellow on purpose, we often we'll make something, whole fruit, and it's done, and then it's like, okay, now let's try 20 different spices to see, let's see how we can, add some complexity and make it really unique. And I think I got a lot of that from John. So
I appreciate that.
yeah, his meads, and there's a few other people kind of doing that. And I think that has been inspiring to me. And other than that, I'm getting inspired now by the like local vermouth and Amaro movement, where people are starting to, realize, oh, you don't have to get everything from Italy. Use, your own, what's in your backyard, and kind of express the terroir of your neighborhood, your city, or whatever. There's more and more people doing that, and that's really cool to me.
Awesome.
Very nice. Thank you. John?
Oh, I draw inspiration from everywhere. Cooking shows is probably my biggest inspiration for some of my meads. Anthony Bourdain, watching his shows and his travels and all that, and learning about spices and food pairings, and probably Charlie Papazian when I was in my early homebrewing stages, like reading his books, and Randy Mosher and all those guys were huge inspirations to me. And then my old boss, Sam Calagione, like nobody was brewing beers like that, years ago when I started homebrewing, and he was a big inspiration to me. Um, but mainly cooking shows. That's in history shows, and just reading books on everything is where I draw a lot of my inspiration from.
Wonderful. So one of the very first questions we got submitted, which happened to be something that's on my docket as well, is somebody wants to know how you would incorporate rice flavor to make a horchata style mead. John, want to take it first?
To make a
You know what a
to make
horchata is?
rice flavor.
Basically, it's rice pudding in liquid form.
I mean, you could probably just boil the rice and then use the water for that to make your base, or you could add in some rice syrup solids to give you a rice flavor. You could probably back sweeten with some of that too to give you that like rich, like kind of creamy rice notes.
How do you keep it from clearing?
Drink it really fast.
Okay. What about you, Billy? Any thoughts on that?
If I was at home brewer, I would say what John said, maybe like make the rice and then use the water as a base. We tried to do it commercially. We can't use rice, so I forget.
Yeah.
We were working with a local chef and we tried a couple different grain-free like options, and they all came out pretty bad. So
Okay.
We've never been able to make a great horchata mead. I know someone has, but I don't know what they use.
Okay. Another question that kind of came in late, but nevertheless is of interest to anyone going commercial is what spices, if any, are not allowed for use in mead by the FDA?
FDA or TTB?
Well, TTB probably, I think is what they really meant.
There's a lot, and
There's a lot.
It's funny. You have to learn how to work with the TTB. So, for example, we use a local sage here in a mead, and we put the name of the sage, and they said that's not on the list of approved ingredients. You need to go through the process of getting it approved, and that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. No one would do that. It's a meadery. So I said, well, what if I just call it sage? And she was like, well, that's fine. Like, okay. So that's what we did, and it got approval. It's like, this is so ridiculous, but you just have to play the game.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't want you to lie to the consumer, but they want you to lie to the consumer.
Uh-huh.
Pretty
Well,
much.
they don't want you to be ridiculously specific, I guess, right?
Yeah.
More like a sort of a general classification kind of thing.
It depends on what it is. Like one of the like wormwood, we had to jump through some hoops for that, and make sure that you tell them you're using just below the level that, anything above they won't approve. But a lot of times, and there's
Is it wormwood that has thujone?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's some classic, well, now I'm drawing a blank, but there's some spices that you would like for our absinthe mead or for some of the vermouths we did that you see in liqueurs and vermouths all the time that we could not use according to TTB, like linden, I think maybe it was one of them.
Like linden flowers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And or angelica root too, maybe one of those.
You might not be able to put it in wine, but I know you can put it in gin.
Right. But
Yeah.
like that's why we were surprised. Yeah, geisho is a good example.
Yeah, geisha. You can't use meadowsweet.
Oh,
Meadowsweet.
what? Really?
Yeah, because it's high in salicylic acid, so you're not allowed to use
Um,
it. But it literally was a traditional herb in Scandinavian meads
oh, yeah. Not to mention it's
for
used in
thousands of
beer
years.
a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. The strangeness of our alcohol laws is legend for sure.
And what's what's that Middle Eastern spice that's basically ground cherry pits?
Oh,
Malab.
Malab.
malab. Yeah.
So we can use malab, but if you make a cherry mead, you have to tell them that the cherries were pitted because they don't want you using cherry pits, but you can directly pour malab into your mead,
Which makes zero sense, of course, right? I mean, I suppose what they're trying to do is keep the what is the heck the chemical that's in a cherry pit that people don't want?
It's
The dangerous
I think it's cyanide, right?
cyanide. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's like
that's what they're
such
trying to
low
avoid. But
levels.
I know,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
you use ground up cherry pits and put it in. How's that any better?
Well, that's a baking spice, so it's okay.
Yeah, I know. It's just, again, it's legend.
Yeah.
So one of the things that people ask a couple times is, all right, both of you guys have done some pretty funky things. How did you know that it was going to work out? And I think I already kind of have the answer from your bench trial comments earlier, but if it's worth exploring, maybe elaborate on that.
how did say that again?
How did you know it was going to work?
But for our part, we don't know. We're just, I mean, at this point, I can turn, if it doesn't work out, I can still make it into a great mead. There's, there's, I guess, yeah, we've never gone big on something that was such a disaster we couldn't pivot and do something else.
Okay, that's fair. Let's see here. What else? Oh, and another thing that came up was we know in general that whole spices typically will last longer than ground spices. Exposure to light and heat can cause spices to lose their flavor and color, while moisture and air can cause them to clump together and lose flavor. What methods of storage would you advise for people to be able to get the most out of their spice additions?
We use like a vacuum sealer,
Okay.
and then I store everything cold.
Ah. Okay.
And then
We-
we have a lot of like airtight plastic containers that we store different things in, but a vacuum sealer for most like dried herbs and things like that, it keeps them a lot fresher over time.
And would you typically use a ground or a whole spice when you're adding spices?
Sometimes both. It just depends on what kind of flavor I'm trying to get, but or what's available.
Okay.
Yeah, we try and use whole though. Like when we were making Devilish Grin and the amount of black pepper we were using, we had to buy bulk ground, and the time you save on just buy one extra jug of it and it came out perfect. But for the most part, we try and use whole.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. I'm sure there's lots more questions. We could keep going for probably another hour or two at least. But we're already a bit over the planned time, which I don't object to in the least. Glad to have you guys here and really appreciate the fact that you've taken the time. Do you have any questions for each other that you would like to explore a little bit before we close up?
I got two questions for John.
Okay.
Have you been able to use if you wanted to make a gin mead, do you have advice for using juniper berries? Every time we do it, we're surprised at how much juniper it takes to get.
It takes a lot.
Okay.
We've actually did a gin. Well, it was a gin barrel aged mead. Local distillery here ages some of their gin and red wine barrels, and then we aged one of our meads in those barrels, and then we added the same herbs to that mead that they use in their gin. But yeah, we had to. I mean, well, the gin in the barrels like flavored it pretty well, but other meads that I've made, I've had to add a ton of juniper berries to get the flavor that I wanted. Because a lot of people are scared of juniper berries, but I find that you have to add more than you think you do. Same with black peppercorns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can, because they I think the mead that Kevin was drinking earlier with the peppercorns in it, um, I had to keep adding them and adding them and adding them to get the flavor profile I wanted for that one.
And then my other question is if I wanted to mimic like kind of oxidative notes from
Mhm.
spice, like leather, um, but not use fruit like raisins or something like that, but try and use spice. Are there any spices you've found that kind of give it that aged, oxidative, anything in that flavor profile?
Not so much spices, but some honey varieties will definitely give you those aged leathery notes. Chestnut blossom,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely like Zambian forest honey. You'll get that like tobacco and some sherry notes out of that honey.
What
But for a
about your Western buckwheat like you've got out there, Billy?
That's delicious. That's not so much. That's more like toffee
Mm.
yeah,
than like sherry-ish.
Miombo was dropped into the chat. I think that'd be another possible
yeah,
thing.
Miombo honey. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very similar to the
Mm,
the Zambian forest
right.
honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're past time, and again, truly appreciate having you both here. Thanks for taking the time out of your schedules to join us. I hope this was helpful for people who will be listening in, and I hope you guys enjoyed the chat. Thanks a
We
lot for
did.
being here.
Yeah, it was nice to be on here.
All
Thanks for
right.
having us, Kevin.
Thanks so much, guys. Really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Kevin.
Have a
Have a
good
great
night.
week.
See you, John.
Enjoy
See
your
ya. See ya,
Christmas.
Billy.
All right. Bye now.